I'm Lydia Wilson, Chair of Council, and I'd also like to introduce my panel colleagues. Firstly, Ms. Peter Duncan.
Good evening.
And Mr. Chris Eddy.
Good evening, all.
I'd also like to introduce our CEO, Mr. Craig Lloyd, and ask that he in turn introduce the council officers in attendance.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to introduce the Executive Manager of Governance and Strategy, Mr. Frank Joyce, the Director of Community Wellbeing, Ms. Kate McCackey.
Good evening.
Director of Corporate Services, Ms. Amy Montalti.
Good evening.
Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Justin O'Mara.
Good evening.
And our Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Ms. Debbie Wood.
Good evening.
Almighty God, we ask for your blessing upon this council to make informed and good decisions to benefit the people of the city of Whittlesea. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive them that trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen. I'm going to hand over to the Chair of Council, Ms. Lydia Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. On behalf of the City of Whittlesea, I recognise the rich Aboriginal heritage of this country and acknowledge the Wurundjeri Willem clan as the traditional owners of this place. I'd also like to personally acknowledge elders past, present and emerging. We'd like to take this opportunity just to make a couple of acknowledgements at the start of the council meeting and before we move into general business. So firstly, I'm delighted to note that the City of Whittlesea has won a Parks and Leisure Australia Victorian Award in the research category, and that's for its Enjoy Seniors Exercise Park project. The Enjoy project is a partnership between Council and the National Ageing Research Institute, NARI, Gandel Philanthropy and Wyndham City Council. And the project researched the effect of an outdoor exercise program on the physical, social and mental health of older residents using the outdoor seniors exercise park, which is located next to the Barry Road Community Centre in Thomastown. It also aimed to reduce isolation and loneliness by fostering social connections through belonging to a group that met on a regular basis. 20 older adults from the City of Whittlesea took part in the project, which ran over 12 months, with health information and measurements being taken by NARI. And I think that the results indicate a really incredibly beneficial project because there are some direct relationships that are evident between exercise and health and well-being. So the number of falls within the study group, for example, reduced from some 51.8% to 31.4%, which was really a very significant reduction. While COVID has had a really significant impact in slowing the momentum of the project, Council's Positive Ageing team is currently working with NARI to expand the project and establish a social exercise program for older people. And the next stage will involve NARI, senior citizens clubs, participants from the previous program, and also local training providers. So sincere congratulations to our Positive Ageing team who led the project in Whittlesea, as well as to our Public Realm Development team. And we're really having our fingers and toes crossed that we are going to progress to the National Awards in September and might have some successful outcomes. And Mr. Lloyd, I wonder if you could ensure that our congratulations are passed on to all of the relevant staff. Thank you. Administrator Eddy, were you wishing to also do an acknowledgement?
Yes, if I may, Madam Chair, thank you. I'd just like to highlight a pretty exciting development that has just taken place at the City of Whittlesea, and that is the launch of an online planning portal, which is a new online one-stop service for people who deal with the council on planning matters. So you can manage your planning permit application from start to finish through this portal. It's a first for local government, we believe. There's certainly been parts of the system that have been made available in online forms around the country, but to seamlessly bring it together right across the process from start to finish, where people can get pre-application advice, find out what the planning requirements are for their particular piece of land before they lodge their application, and then monitor it going through the whole process, which, you know, some people, let's face it, find it a bit of a mystery. This does demystify the process. And I think what's really exciting about this is the potential with this new system for the further integration of council systems that will lead to major customer service improvements for anyone who deals with council through whatever function or whatever service it is that we're providing to them. So I just really want to commend the work that's been done over a considerable period of time to bring this forward. Commend it to people, anyone who has planning dealings with the council. We encourage you to use it and let us know your thoughts. But I think it's another great example of Whittlesea leading the way. So well done all.
Thank you, Administrator Eddie. And I'd just simply echo that it is a first for local government. And I think we're aware that there's considerable interest across the sector in just seeing what we've done and what has been developed. So thank you for that. I note that all administrators are present. And administrators, if you have a conflict of interest in any item on the notice paper, you may verbally disclose the type and nature of the interest now, but you must make a declaration immediately before consideration of the matter in question. Are there any items for which you have a conflict of interest to declare, administrators?
No, Chair.
Nothing to declare, Chair.
And I also have nothing to declare. I seek a motion to confirm the minutes of the following preceding meeting, the scheduled meeting of Council held on the 5th of July 2021.
I'm happy to move that, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Administrator Duncan and Administrator Eddie. I'll now put the matter to a vote. All those in favour of confirming the minutes? The motion is carried. I note that we have received 2 questions from members of the public, and I'll read each of those questions and ask the CEO, Mr. Lloyd, to respond to each one of them in turn. So the first question is from Kate Wilson, committee member of Whittlesea Pony Club from Beveridge, and her question reads, the Whittlesea Pony Club and the Whittlesea Pony and Adult Rider Club share the same grounds at the Whittlesea Agricultural Society showgrounds. The showgrounds are located on Yea Road, situated directly next to the Whittlesea Football Club. We lease the area from the Agricultural Society, and as part of this agreement, we are responsible for the maintenance of the grounds. The management of the grounds includes the slashing of the grass, requiring the employment of a contractor at a cost of $7,000 to the clubs. We're a very small club of only 25 members, the majority who are under the age of 12. The yearly cost for the slashing of the grass imposes an additional burden on our already limited funds. Prior to COVID-19, we hosted several competitions and training days throughout the year to raise funds to pay our instructors and maintain our amenities. Our pony club has been a part of the Whittlesea community for nearly 50 years. Many of our members are the children of past members who have fond memories of their time at Whittlesea Pony Club. It's a place where children can come together and share their knowledge and love of horses, and where lifetime friendships are made. Next year marks the 50-year anniversary of our pony club. However, Unfortunately, this milestone may not be reached if we do not receive some assistance with grounds maintenance. We are seeking council assistance with the grass slashing and are hopeful that you will be able to help. Presently, council maintains the Whittlesea Football Club grounds, and it would be greatly appreciated if our grounds could be done at the same time. We would greatly appreciate your help in this matter, and hopefully our club will continue to provide children with the opportunity to grow and develop their skills for another 50 years. Mr. Craig, I wonder if you'd like to respond to that question.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So thank you, Kate, for your submission on behalf of the Whittlesea Pony Club. Council officers have also received other recent requests of a similar nature regarding mowing from other members of the Whittlesea Pony Club. Council currently carries out significant maintenance at the Whittlesea Showgrounds on behalf of the Whittlesea Agricultural Society and the Football Club, and our officers will be in touch shortly to set up a meeting with the Pony Club as well as other users of the site. We want to better understand the current arrangements in place and the site's history, and to review how we manage the site as a whole into the future and best support all user groups.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. And can I just also acknowledge the significant contribution that the club makes to the community of Whittlesea, and we thank you for your efforts. The second question is from Mr. Kevin Ballam, and he's from Craigieburn, and his question reads, "Hi, I would appreciate my question being asked and answered at tonight's council meeting of administrators. Does City of Whittlesea Council have any agreement with Department of Transport ex-Vic Roads to transfer road management functions to maintain any part of freeway reserves within the municipality? Does Council have any responsibility or have any recommendations for the public for the reporting of non-road issues on freeway reserves, e.g. for issues concerning shared paths, vegetation or fences?" Again, Mr. Lloyd, if you would respond to that question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks for your question, Kevin. Under the Road Management Act, the Department of Transport, as you noted previously, Vic Roads, is responsible for the whole of the road reserves for freeways. Council does not have any agreement to maintain pathways, reserves or fences within the freeway road reserves located in our municipality. If you do have any questions about any of these, it's best to direct them directly to the Department of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. And again, can we thank the people who have submitted questions to this evening's council meeting. There are no petitions or joint letters, and administrators will now be working through the council agenda. And the first item is 6.1.1 for decision, proposed community plan 2021 to 2025. And if I could ask our Executive Manager Governance and Strategy, Mr. Frank Joyce, to provide a brief presentation on this report and its recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to introduce Mr. Rob Kifton, the Unit Manager of Corporate Planning and Improvement, who will provide a bit of an overview on the report in the first instance.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Thank you, Chair, and good evening, everyone. I'm pleased to present the proposed Community Plan 2021-2025 this evening. The proposed plan includes the Council Plan 21-25, the Municipal Public Health and Wellbeing Plan, the Disability Action Plan, and Pandemic Recovery Actions over the forthcoming period. It's Council's main strategic document over the next 4 years, and it draws on a broad evidence base, and in particular on community engagement that we comprehensively conducted over the February and March period in particular this year. And I would very much like, on behalf of Council, to express the gratitude to each and everyone who's been involved in this process for the fabulous feedback that we've received that has really shaped and informed the development of this particular plan. From a content perspective, it really sets the agenda over the forthcoming periods. We've got the pandemic recovery, which impacts and shapes a lot of that. We've got social cohesion, community cohesion. We've got mental health as a key issue that has been identified. From an infrastructure perspective, we've got access to quality open space, which is a really important item that has come up over and over again through the engagement period. Substantive investment into community infrastructure, into transport infrastructure and services. And also with regards to our business community, really looking at how we can support our business community in terms of recovering from the pandemic and making sure that we can essentially grow the economy locally as best as we can. With regards to sustainable environment, our fourth key pillar from a strategic perspective, climate change and the impacts and how we manage that is a key priority. And in particular, the tree cover that helps us set ourselves up into the future. Under our fifth goal, high performing organization, really access to services and quality of services is a key focus area. Now, with regards to the proposed recommendations, the proposed recommendation is that Council adopt the proposed Community Plan 2021 to 2025 for community consultation between the 3rd of August 2021 and the 31st of August 2021. And that Council endorse an additional Council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, the 25th of October 2021 at the Council Chamber, Council Offices 25 Ferris Boulevard, South Morang, to adopt the Community Plan 2021 to 2025 and the Financial Plan 2021 to 2031, following further community consultation to inform the final plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kisjan. That was an excellent overview of the consultation associated with the development of the community plan, and I think you did a really great summary of some of the key themes under each of the overarching goals. So thank you very much. It's just over to question time, and I wonder whether I could perhaps just start the ball rolling with a couple of initial questions to either yourself or to Mr. Joyce. Firstly, I note in the report that there's obviously been extensive consultation, as you've indicated, over a number of months in the development of the current draft of the community plan. But I wonder if you can just elaborate a little bit more on how other data has also been incorporated into the community plan. And I'm referring, for argument's sake, in relation to consultation associated with the development of other strategies, but also the community satisfaction survey results.
Yes, certainly I can respond to that, Chair. So we have used a lot of data in considering to help inform the plan. So it's included things such as the ABS data, the annual household survey data that's done regularly by Council, data obtained through the COVID-19 impacts report, which was developed. Also Salandra Rise research on COVID-19 impacts. We had communication, we've had feedback from the Local Government Victoria Customer Satisfaction Survey, which has been based on the importance and the performance of council services, which we've considered. We also had significant consultation 2 years ago for the Whittlesea 2040 development, and that was also still reflected because it was such a large volume of community involved in that. We have also received feedback throughout the last few months through working in looking at particularly at the public health plan and also the disability plan and the pandemic plans of integrating those and working with our key stakeholders, that is partnership organisations, the disability advisory network, with the disability network and so forth, to ensure that their feedback has also been able to be used to inform the plan, to make sure that it's reflective of a broader range of people in the community and also what the data is telling us from a health impacts report and a COVID recovery report.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. I think it's really important to note that it was not just a couple of months of community consultation, but obviously a lot of consultation and data has fed into the development of the community plan. So thank you for that. I've just got a second question, if I could. The report indicates clearly that we will be undertaking further community consultation in relation to the current draft that we are endorsing this evening, but also in relation to the financial plan as well. I wonder if you could just outline how we're intending to streamline the consultation, given that both of those key strategic documents in essence will be going out for community consultation at roughly the same time.
Yes, so at the moment the financial plan will be ready for going out to the community in mid-August. The community plan is available to go out from now. There is an option to go out together mid-August if that was determined. Otherwise, what will be happening is any information coming out through feedback on the community plan would then also be used to inform the financial plan 2021 to 2031. And obviously, if there's any feedback coming through the financial plan consultations, then that would also be used to inform the community plan. So we are looking at, through the website, the Engage website, we'll be having the options for people to participate in surveys and also consult, for either document through whilst they're both out for consultation.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Are there any further questions? Administrator Eddie?
Thank you, Chair. And just on that last point, I think it would be incumbent upon us to consider how we can streamline the consultation on those two documents rather than having them go out separately. It would make sense to align those for the community so that they've got one task, I guess, of reading and commenting on both of those together. And it makes sense because the financial plan obviously is how we're going to deliver this wonderful community plan. Can I firstly just congratulate everyone on this document? It looks terrific. It's all-encompassing. And my question is really about that all-encompassing nature. As Mr. Christian mentioned, it includes the Disability Action Plan. It includes the Public Health and Wellbeing Plan and the Pandemic Recovery Actions. I guess my question is how, and it might be a question for the CEO, I'm not sure, how does the organisation ensure that the appropriate focus is maintained on all of those areas, given that they used to have their own separate documents?
I'm happy to take that one, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes, Administrator Eddie, the way we're planning on doing that is having one central, single tracking and reporting system. So whilst we are monitoring a whole load of moving parts at once, I think it's actually going to be simpler than it was previously, having all of those separate plans. The beauty of having this one single plan is that we're able to integrate a lot of the actions as well. So rather than having standalone actions, which are only partly measurable, all of these actions now would be measurable across that plan. So we'll have one single reporting system, and that will be regularly reported to both council and the community.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Any further questions? No? If there's no further question, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for item 6.1.1, but with amendments to both part 1 and part 2, and I'll read out the specific amendments which really take account of the discussion that has just ensued. And part 1 to be adopt the proposed community plan 2021 to 2025 for community consultation between the 20th of August 2021 and the 20th of September 2021. And number 2, to endorse the Chair of Administrator's request to the CEO to schedule an additional council meeting to be held at 6 p.m. on Monday the 25th of October 2021 at the Council Chamber, Council Offices, 25 Ferris Boulevard, South Morang, to adopt the Community Plan 2021 to 2025 and the Financial Plan 2021 to 2031, following further community consultation to inform the final plans. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second this item.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. So as the mover of the motion, I'd probably just want to highlight a few additional points, given there has been a really comprehensive overview of the report this evening. So this is an incredibly important 4-year community plan, and we are currently seeking further community comment and feedback, because we're really keen to know whether the current plan reflects community perspectives. Have we got it right? Have we missed anything? What is the general feedback? And I just want to also acknowledge that the report clearly outlines the fact that there's been a huge amount of consultation that has occurred, not just from the data that has previously been provided to Council, but over a couple of months directly for this current plan, and that was at obviously face-to-face events during February and March, but a whole series of different events that have been run. And I think it's really very commendable that we've got over 5,000 pieces of feedback that have been considered in the development of the plan, and that there's been an enormous number of individual events, online and paper surveys, focus groups, and a number of pop-up stalls in local areas. And I must just say that I have attended a number of the different events that have been held and the pop-ups. So it's been very great to hear firsthand some of our community's views. We also had 26 people join our participatory budget workshops to develop the recommendations for the $2 million Community Recovery Fund. And again, it was a great honour to be part of that process and to hear the views directly from residents of Whittlesea. I just wanted to note that administrators have been directly involved in the development of the current plan, and we've been involved in a series of workshops just to make sure from our own views that the document is reflective of community aspirations. And I want to echo Administrator Eddy's comments of acknowledging the enormous efforts of staff. Mr. Kisgan, to you and your team, and to Mr. Joyce, we really acknowledge all of the efforts that have gone into an enormous community consultation process. And like you, I'd also like to acknowledge the input that's been received from community members. I think it's just so wonderful to have that level of input into the development of this draft. The reason for our amended recommendation is obviously to make sure that the consultation in relation to the community plan and the financial plan occurs in sync, and we're wanting to provide additional time to hear back the views from community members. So again, thank you to our staff for the development of the current community plan and to the many people who have contributed to its development. Would the seconder of the motion like to speak to the item?
Just briefly, Chair, thank you. I concur with everything you've said and congratulate the council officers on this plan. It is fantastic, and particularly with the amount of community feedback we've received and engagement through this planning process. It's very heartening to know that our residents really do care and want to offer their ideas and what they would like to see for their city. So I think that's very good. We obviously heard that this plan does incorporate various other council plans, which Mr. Kitson went through. So I won't rename all of those again. But I really would like to encourage everybody to take the opportunity during the last phase of the consultation process from August 20th to September 20th to provide your last sort of roll of the dice on feedback back to us, so that we can then adopt the plan in late October. And the plan will be up on the Whittlesea webpage, and there'll be a link up there for you to obviously review the plan and the financial plan as well, and then come back to us with the final round of feedback, because that's very valuable. So I look forward to seeing the last round of the feedback that we receive. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Duncan. I see that Mr Eddy has taken his mute off, so I presume you'd like to also speak to the item.
If I may, Madam Chair, yes, please. This is a significant item, of course. One of the most important tasks, I think, of us as a council to adopt this community plan to take through this term and beyond. I just want to echo the comments that are made about the work that's gone into this, particularly not just from the organisation, but from the community. As Madam Chair said, over 5,000 pieces of feedback. I think that's a staggering number. If you read the document, and I truly do recommend that everyone take the time to read this, it's not a hard read. It's actually a really good read. The statistics are really enlightening, explaining the population growth and the way our community is changing. And it really gives you a snapshot of what we're dealing with in the city of Whittlesea in the time to come. I think the participatory engagement around the Community Recovery Fund was particularly important given its timing. On the heel, well, we thought at the time it was probably on the heels of the pandemic. We now know it's going to be around for quite some time. This gives us a great snapshot of how this community is feeling and dealing with that in particular, what those most current and crucial issues are, to inform not only that pandemic funding, but the longer term direction of the city and community. I do encourage people to take the time to read the document, to look at the financial plan, understand it as a whole, and please make some meaningful comment about it. It's not a fait accompli. The purpose of this stage now is to get people's thoughts, and as Madam Chair said, did we get it right? The only other thing I'd like to say is to congratulate Lydia, Peter and Mr Lloyd and the team for the work that they've done prior to my arrival on pulling all this together. I feel like I've just come in and jumped on the horse at the last moment. But it's truly a huge piece of work that's come to fruition, and I congratulate everyone for it.
Thank you for your comments, Mr Eddy, and I think I omitted to say what a readable and accessible document it is, so thank you for reflecting that as well. On that note, I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is unanimously carried. Thank you. Item 6.1.2 for decision, scheduled council meetings for 2022. And again, Mr Joyce, if I could ask you to briefly speak to this report and its recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. So we're really pleased to put forward the proposed council meeting schedule for 2022. So earlier this year, the meetings for 2021 were endorsed, and we're now putting forward the schedule for 2022. And this is enabling then us to plan and prepare for those future meetings, and also confirm with the community about where the meetings will be held and the time they'll be held as well. So it's really important that we've got an opportunity. It's difficult, obviously, when we're meeting virtually, but hopefully this situation will pass, and then it's a great opportunity for the public and the community to come to participate in council meetings, whether it's asking questions or just being in part of the gallery. So we've got 12 meetings scheduled, one per month, and we're proposing quarterly meetings out in the community, which would have a community forum prior to the council meeting starting. So in the recommendation, it outlines the proposed council meeting schedule for 2022. I won't read that all out, but in a nutshell, it sort of has 6:30 p.m. starts, except for March, June, September and December, which would be 7:30 p.m. starts at community venues, following a community meeting prior to the council meeting. It is proposed that the 21st of March meeting is held at the Whittlesea Community Activity Centre in Whittlesea. The 13th of June meeting being held at Barry Road Community Activity Centre in Thomastown. The 19th of September meeting being held at Gallagher Community Centre in Epping, and the 12th of December 22 meeting being held at the Mernda Village Community Activity Centre in Mernda. So this gives a great opportunity for council to go out into community and for the local residents to be able to participate more easily in participating in council meetings. The second part of the recommendation is that we give public notice of the council meeting schedule for 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Joyce. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item? No? If there's no questions, do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 6.1.2?
I'm happy to move that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Eddy. And a seconder?
Yes, Chair, happy to do that.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. And would the mover like to speak to the item?
Yes, Madam Chair, just very briefly, it might seem a procedural motion, but it is very important. And I'm really pleased to move this. It establishes the meeting schedule for next year with a commitment to take our meetings out to the community once per quarter, as Mr. Joyce outlined, in Thomastown, Epping, Mernda and Whittlesea. This builds on a practice that my fellow administrators commenced earlier this year and is outlined in the very important document, the Community Engagement Policy. And I remind people there are 2 meetings coming up this calendar year, one in Epping, one in Thomastown. They're in September and December. And I like that they're preceded by a community forum. So we're not going to make you sit through the meeting and then get a chance to talk to the administrators. I think it's the right way around. People can come along and talk to us, tell us what's on their mind. It's an important part of the commitment of the administrators to engaging with the community, and I commend the motion to you.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Would the seconder like to speak to the item? No?
No, thank you.
I might just say a couple of comments only because I wanted to echo Administrator Eddy's sentiment about that this is part of our real commitment to consultation and engagement. And while COVID-19 has restricted to a certain extent in more recent times some of our movements, we're hoping that we'll be able to get out and about shortly and resume some of the activities that we were undertaking, including just being out in the community, visiting community organisations, meeting people, going out to the shopping precincts, and we're hoping some different ways of consulting, even coffee catch-ups at local cafes. So I'm really pleased that we will be having these community forums and community council meetings. So I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is carried. Item 6.2.1 for decision, planning application 718577, subdivide land 35 lots in the general residential zone and removal of native vegetation in a vegetation protection overlay, and including dead vegetation under clause 52.17 at 17 to 19 Johnson's Road, Mernda. If I could ask our Director of Planning and Development, Mr. Justin O'Mara, to introduce this item. Mr. O'Mara, you're on mute.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce Planner Murray Ness, who has led the assessment of this application. He's going to provide a very brief overview of the report and also a brief summary of the officer recommendations. So over to you, Murray.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Mara. Sorry, it's a little bit bright. This is a site that used to be the Mernda Primary School, which council purchased from the state government in 2014. Now, while council is the owner of the property, the council is still the responsible authority for assessing and determining the application. And in that respect, to retain the processes remaining quite at arm's length and completely transparent and objective, a planning consultant was engaged to run the application for the council, and the process was as thorough as any application would typically be. The initial application proposed 38 lots, and throughout a fairly lengthy consideration process, there was a lot of issues raised by officers, particularly relating to vegetation assessment and drainage, bushfire planning, and the layout of the subdivision and the roads in the subdivision. Ultimately, it resulted in a plan showing a total of 35 lots that increased the areas of reserves to retain additional trees, to avoid tree protection zones or the root zones being located within private lots, future private lots. It did create an additional reserve at the southern end, and that was to match an approved reserve and a large tree and its overhang and tree protection zone encroaching onto this site, and that's situated on land to the west. The plan that created 35 lots was the plan that was publicly advertised, and while advertising resulted in 4 objections being received, a response to those objections is contained in the report, but in effect, the proposed subdivision is considered satisfactory and consistent with the residential zoning of the land and the development plan overlay that applies to the land as well. It meets the requirements set out in the detailed concept plan, which is part of the development plan overlay schedule, and subject to appropriate conditions, approval is recommended for this development, this subdivision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ness. I wonder again whether I might start the ball rolling with questions, and I think you've answered my first question, but I might also throw to Mr. O'Mara just to further elaborate, because my question was really, given that council's the applicant for this planning permit and also the decision maker, how do we ensure the accountability and transparency in relation to the effective separation of powers? So I noted that you made a comment in your introduction about the fact that we engaged a planning consultant. But I wondered, Mr. O'Mara, whether you just wanted to elaborate any further in relation to that issue of separation of powers.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'm happy to elaborate a little bit further. So we ran this as with across 2 separate departments. So therefore, the applicant is in effect our property department, which is in a separate directorate to the planning and development directorate, and the property team engaged the planning consultants that were in effect the applicant for council. And any feedback that Planner Murray Ness had on the application went back via the consultants rather than back internally to our property team. So it was always kept at arm's length and separate. The property team and our planning team never spoke directly with each other about the application, because we wanted to ensure that there was a separation of decision maker and also the owner of the property, which is in effect our property department.
Thank you, Mr. O'Mara. I notice also in the report there is a comment that council will be liable for developer contributions for the site. And I just wondered whether you can clarify the process of how does that actually work?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Chair. Thanks for the question. So in the Mernda strategy plan area, all landowners that seek to develop their land that are covered by the Mernda strategy plan, which this site is, are required to pay the same rate of development contributions, no matter who they are. They all pay the same rate. So at the time that this site is developed, if it is developed in the future, the rate of the development contribution rate will need to be paid at the same rate as any other landowner in the area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. O'Mara. And I think Mr. Eddy had a further question.
I do, thank you, Chair, if you don't mind. I wonder, Mr. O'Mara, if you might just explain the timeline or the process going forward for the development of this site, because one of the things I looked for in the report was how will social and affordable housing ultimately be considered in relation to this site. I know now is not the time, but perhaps for the community, what can we expect to happen in the coming months and years with this site?
Yeah, thank you, Administrator Eddy. So This is, you make a good point. It's not for tonight's report. That's a separate matter for council to consider in the future as to what to do with the land if council does decide they want to approve the application. So if the application is approved, council then needs to make a decision how they would like to develop the land. So there will need to be a separate report that comes to council by the property department, who in effect the lead owners of the land within the council organisation. And that report, I expect, will outline a range of options for council to consider, which may also include the ability to provide affordable housing options as part of a broader development of the site in accordance with this application, if it's approved. But that's not for tonight. That'll be for a future report, which I understand the property department would be looking to bring to council before Christmas this year. That's the timeframe they'd be looking to work to.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Do I have a mover and seconder for the officer recommendation then for item 6.2.1?
I'm happy to move that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Eddy. And a seconder?
I'm happy to do that, Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. Would the mover and or seconder like to speak to the item?
Just very briefly, Madam Chair, I thank the officers for the explanation on where we're at in the process for this site. A lot of councils have been able to secure surplus school sites across Melbourne in recent years, and then the challenge comes as to what's the best and most appropriate use of that land for the community going forward. With the growth that is being experienced in the city of Whittlesea, it makes sense that this is the likely outcome. But I just do want to assure people that in considering these issues, administrators have, I think, particularly challenged officers to understand that independence of thinking between the developer arm and the responsible authority arm, I guess, of the council has been considered appropriately. And, I was satisfied and pleased to hear that has been the case. As Mr. O'Mara has explained, there are a number of steps to this process, and I look forward to the time when we do get to consider as the next stage what will happen with that site and take into account all of those elements that will be of interest to the community at the appropriate time. But for now, happy to move this step in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Would the seconder like to speak to the item? No.
No, thanks.
I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 6.2.2 for decision, planning permit application 719422 for 6-lot subdivision at 24 to 26 Lorimer Hill Drive, Doreen. And I note that Mr. Ness is still in attendance, so I presume, Mr. O'Mara, that I'll hand straight over to Mr. Ness to introduce this particular report and its recommendations?
Yes, that's correct, Chair.
Mr. Ness.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, this is an application for the 6-lot subdivision of one of the larger lots, which is on the periphery of this residential estate. And this estate was developed with the larger lots around the outside edges of the estate. This is one of the sites, the larger sites, that backs onto Yan Yan Road. No access, but backs onto Yan Yan Road. Until recently, and it was, I think, the end of 2019, that there was a covenant that had been placed on titles by the original subdivider that only one dwelling could be constructed on each lot, and that there could be no further subdivision. Once that expired in the end of 2019, this application was made following that. It actually requests or seeks a subdivision for 6 lots, one of which contains existing house, 2 lots in the front of the house, and 3 lots at the rear. Pardon me. The application was advertised and there were numerous objections received. And one of the main issues raised by objectors was that it was contrary to what had been established as the character of this location, particularly in relation to these large lots on the outside of or the edges of this estate. This was assessed. This application was assessed by officers, and it is considered to be contrary to the character of what's been established in this location, both in terms of lot size and lot layout. It's a battle axe style lots at the rear with a single point of access for three of the lots at the rear. So it has been assessed as contrary to the character of the area, and there's some detail of some layout issues as well. There's some clause 56, which is the residential subdivision requirements of the planning scheme issues. So in effect, it's been seen that the proposed subdivision is contrary to the character of the area, along with a few other minor or other issues, and the recommendation is that the application be refused.
Thank you, Mr. Ness. I do have an initial question, and you covered off in your introduction the point about the fact that the covenant that had been imposed by the original developer in 2003 is no longer applicable, and also the Lorimer development plan also has expired.
Yes.
I just wondered whether you or Mr. O'Mara might just want to comment about the future in relation to the fact that the covenant and the development plan are no longer applicable.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to that, Chair. Mr. Ness has outlined one of the key aspects of that's led to the recommendation of refusal, and that is neighbourhood character. So in this area, the lot pattern is such that you have your smaller, high density lots closer to the Lorimer town centre, and the lower density residential lots closer to Yang Yang Road, and also to what is in effect a green wedge area on the other side of the road, and also on the outskirts of Lorimer as well. So it's very important that we recognise under clause 56 that neighbourhood character is a key consideration when we review and make decisions upon subdivisions, and that established neighbourhood character in this instance, which is a larger lot size, we consider needs to be is the preferred neighbourhood character, and therefore any applications that come before council really need to respect that preferred neighbourhood character. So that in terms of what's the future for the area, the future is to maintain that preferred neighbourhood character, which is consistent with all of council's planning strategies and also the provisions of the planning scheme as well.
Thank you, Mr. O'Mara. Any further questions from my colleagues? No? I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for item 6.2.2. Do I have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Just in moving this item, I just simply wanted to reiterate that there's obviously, as Mr. Ness indicated, been 32 objections that have been received in relation to this particular planning application, and a number of those objectors specifically cited the issue of neighbourhood character as being a really key issue for them in their submissions. And I think it's clear from the previous briefings that we've had in relation to this application, but also from the comprehensive report, that obviously this planning application does not comply in respect of neighbourhood character. And as Mr. Ness indicated, that's particularly in terms of the subdivision pattern, the size of the lots, and inconsistency in built form and the spacing of dwellings. So on that note, I endorse the officer recommendations in relation to this application. Would the seconder of the item like to speak?
Nothing to add to that. Thank you, Chair.
If not, I'll, Administrator Duncan, nothing further. I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? The motion is unanimously carried. Thank you, Mr. Ness. Item 6.2.3 for decision planning application number 720167, removal of native vegetation associated with a utility installation at 385 McDonalds Road, South Morang. Mr. O'Mara, if I could get you to introduce the relevant council officer who will be speaking to this item.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce planner Sarah Steadwell, who has assessed this application. Sarah will provide a brief overview of the report and officer recommendations. So, welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This proposal involves the removal of 10 river red gums to facilitate the construction and expansion of a utility installation at AusNet's existing South Morang Terminal Exchange at 385 McDonalds Road in South Morang. The South Morang Terminal Exchange forms part of Victoria's electricity transmission network and provides high voltage electricity to the state. The removal of this vegetation is required to facilitate the construction and expansion of important state and federal infrastructure, which will provide electricity as part of an interstate upgrade that will see Victoria share power with New South Wales and vice versa during times of peak demand. The proposed works form part of a high priority project with both federal and state government, which is required to be completed before October 2022. The utility installation works themselves do not trigger a planning permit. However, the native vegetation removal associated with these works do require planning approval. The design considered multiple options to reduce environmental impacts and including the requirement for vegetation removal. The design of the utility installation includes provision of monopole structures instead of the usual lattice structure to minimise the affected area and reduce the requirement for tree removal. The design also investigated line rerouting options where possible to reduce the required tree removal. Notice of the application was not undertaken as the vegetation proposed for removal was located centrally within the site and no material detriment to adjoining properties as anticipated. Planning permit approval was recommended subject to conditions on any permit that issues. This includes the appropriate protection of all vegetation to be retained and provision of offset planting in accordance with the relevant requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Steadwell. And if I could perhaps just ask the initial question, which is a comment and a question. So I think you highlight clearly that this is such an important application in terms of state and federal electricity transmission.
Yes.
And for me, clearly, some of the key concerns in relation to this application relate to vegetation removal and habitat, and hence the number of permit conditions which require careful oversight of any tree removal by council officers, and also that suitably qualified wildlife handlers and or zoologists are in attendance to oversee the works. I note that recommendation 5A requires the applicant to secure general vegetation offsets within the Port Phillip and Western Port catchment management boundary or the Whittlesea City Council municipal area. And I just wondered whether that latter requirement could not simply be within the City of Whittlesea.
The guidelines for removal, destruction or lopping of native vegetation, which is a state government document, it provides guidance in identifying appropriate offset sites for ongoing protection and management of native vegetation. And through that document, offsets can either be a first party offset, which means that it's provided on the same property as the proposed removal, or another property managed by the party requiring the offset, so the applicant, or a third party offset, which means it's on somebody else's property. Basically, offset sites are determined based on availability of appropriate land as well as the cost to secure the offset. Guidelines require the offset to be located within the same catchment management authority boundary or the municipal district, which is obviously the council area, as the native vegetation to be removed. The condition that we've provided, that's in accordance with the guidelines. Therefore, council is unable to force the applicant to provide their offsets specifically within the City of Whittlesea. However, we could potentially work with the applicant to see if there's scope for those offsets to be provided within the City of Whittlesea.
Thank you, Ms Stedwell. You can obviously see where I'm heading, so that would be certainly something that I would have advocated for, that the offset is provided within the municipal area, but I certainly take your point that we can't prescribe it as a permit condition. Any further questions in relation to this application? I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for item 6.2.3. Do I have a seconder?
Chair.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan. I don't wish to speak any further to the item. Administrator Duncan or Administrator Eddy?
No, thank you.
I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 6.3.1 for decision, planning application number 719852, use of the land for the purpose of a caretaker's house at 724 Brand Drive, Thomastown. And I will hand over to you, Mr. O'Mara, to introduce your planning officer.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to introduce Justin Fox, who's the planner that has assessed this application, and Justin will provide a brief overview of the report and officer recommendations. So over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Mr. O'Mara, and thank you, Chair. So this is a planning application for the use of a caretaker's house at Unit 724 Brand Drive in Thomastown. So the use associated with an existing industrial use, essentially the site's operating as a warehouse that stores vehicles on a temporary basis. Advertising of the application was undertaken and council received 9 objections, and also 1 petition was received that contained 11 signatures. And I'll speak further about these grounds of objection shortly, but it's recommended that council resolve to refuse this application as the proposed use is not compatible with the purpose of the relevant zone, which is the Industrial 1 zone in this case, and nor does it comply with clause 1703-1S of the Whittlesea planning scheme, which is the industrial land supply clause. The introduction of a residential use into an industrial area like this would conflict with the existing industrial uses, which are they're considered as of right in this area. So what that means is they don't require planning permission; they can operate as of right. So in doing so, the approval of a caretaker's house would prejudice the availability of industrial land. Excuse me, sorry. So the site, it's located within a wider industrial complex. It's comprised of 16 warehouses with access that's provided via a common driveway through the middle of the site. It's also surrounded on every way via other industrial uses, including directly adjacent to the subject warehouse, which is number 7. That backs onto another industrial premises as well to the rear. So as I mentioned, advertising resulted in 9 objections being received, and these really centred around the use undermining the purpose of the Industrial 1 zone, and the likelihood of noise complaints arising or other complaints arising or conflicts between the existing industrial uses and a residential use. Perhaps it's important with this application to note that the permit applicant has actually previously applied and was granted a planning permit at number 15/24 Brand Drive, which is in the same complex as this current application in 2013. On this application and the previous one, council included several conditions on the planning permit that were really designed to minimise any sort of adverse impact on the surrounding sites. Most notably of which was a condition that stipulated that the permit would expire after 2 years, and at that time that use of the caretaker's house would need to cease and all the works and buildings associated with it would need to be removed from the site. This condition was actually appealed and deleted from the permit by the tribunal, who determined the council cannot issue a temporary planning permit for what is an ongoing use. And this was really the sole finding on the matter. That the tribunal didn't consider whether or not the merits of a caretaker's residence were appropriate at this site. So since this previous decision, the applicant has now come back and has lodged his application at a neighbouring unit. However, numerous advances in technology have arguably nullified the need to provide 24-hour surveillance in the form of a caretaker. And throughout the application process, council officers haven't been satisfied that a sufficient nexus between the existing business, so that warehouse use and the need for a caretaker has been established. It's also worth noting that council has received numerous complaints from the surrounding businesses in regards to the existing caretaker's house, just in terms of conflicting with those industrial uses. This permit's still considered live as well, this previous permit. So approval of this current application may even lead to a situation whereby you might have two caretakers' houses that are operating from within the same complex. And for these reasons, it's again recommended that council resolves to refuse this application.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item? Mr. Eddy?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify with Mr. Fox, when he says that pre-existing permit is still live, do we anticipate that will remain live forever and a day, or does it expire at some future point in time?
Yeah, it can be a little bit difficult to say, and the reason that is a planning permit for use, so for the use of that caretaker's premises, will run with the land until that use has been discontinued for a period of 2 years or more. So at this point, we don't know if that's going to elapse or not, but it's likely that it may not.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 6.3.1?
I can move that one, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy, and I'm happy to second the item. Mr. Eddy, would you like to speak to the item?
Just briefly, Madam Chair, I must admit the existence of the previous permit is a little troubling, but I do understand and accept the rationale that's being put forward for refusing this particular application for another caretaker's house in, let's face it, what is an industrial 1 zone. And that's not in compliance with the planning scheme and compromises the purpose of that zone and the principles of orderly planning. So I'm happy to support the officer's recommendation on this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. And I'd just make a couple of comments because I think the report is self-explanatory and covers all of the key issues very well. I think Mr. Fox indicated that the justification for the need for an additional caretaker's house has not been established. And as you say, Mr. Eddy, and Mr. Fox did as well, this is obviously an industrial precinct. But I'd just also highlight the point that is made very well within the council officer report, and that is that there's been very significant advances in both technology and security systems, enabling sophisticated 24-hour camera surveillance and also remote access. So on that basis, I agree with the officer recommendation. I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Mr. Fox. We move to item 6.4.1 for decision amendment to the Section 173 agreement with Waterstone Hill Estate. And if I could introduce our Director of Infrastructure and Environment, Debbie Wood, and I think she will be in turn introducing another officer to provide the brief summary of this report and its recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. I'll actually just talk to the report.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. So the Waterstone Hill Estate subdivision in South Morang is subject to a historic Section 173 agreement, which was signed in 2002. The agreement currently is managed by the Waterstone Hill Owners Corporation. But in January 2020, Council received a letter from the Owners Corporation just requesting a variation to the agreement. The report that we're presenting tonight actually outlines the proposal to amend the agreement and transfer the responsibility for the maintenance of existing street trees from the Owners Corporation to Council. So the proposal would see approximately 536 street trees added to Council's current street tree management contract at an estimate cost per annum of around $17,259. Council has already undertaken some work on some of the trees just to ensure their ongoing health. And there is also some further works that will be required prior to putting them on the annual maintenance contract. So consultation has also taken place with the chair of the Owners Corporation, and residents were also spoken to about the proposal, and no objections had been received by the residents. So council officers recommend that council resolve to accept the proposal to take on the existing trees as per the and amend the 173 agreement, and then also notify the landowners and the corporation just in writing of council's decision.
Thank you, Ms. Wood. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item? No? If there's no questions, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for item 6.4.1. Do I have a seconder?
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to second.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. Just in speaking to this recommendation, I'd just echo the comments made by Ms. Wood that obviously this is a historic and very unusual arrangement, dare I say a bit of an anomaly, dating back many years to 2002, whereby council had no responsibility for maintenance of the trees and open space in Waterstone Estate. I totally agree with the officer comments in the report and the briefings that we've had on this item, that to me, this is a really sensible approach, and it's highlighted within the report, and I really agree with the sentiment that it displays equity for the residents of the estate who do pay rates and charges, as well as paying obviously body corporate fees. But I also just wanted to highlight the other point that is again well made in the report, that it is about a rigorous maintenance and renewal program for those 536 trees on the estate. And to me, that's also critical in terms of general tree management and a strategy that we've not long ago endorsed, which is the Greening Whittlesea strategy. So I'm very happy to move this item. Administrator Duncan, did you wish to speak to the item?
No, thanks, Chair.
If that's the case, I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Item 6.4.2 for decision, response to petition, replacement of trees along Fielding Drive, Mernda. And again, Ms. Wood, if I could ask you to do a brief overview of this report and its recommendations.
Thank you, Chair. The petition for the removal of trees along Fielding Drive in Mernda was initially tabled at Council on the 2nd of February 2021. There were 15 residents that had signed a petition requesting the removal and replacement of the existing trees. Council officers, after that petition, actually commissioned 2 independent reports, an arborist report and an engineer report. We also went out on site and met with the residents and the head petitioner to really listen and physically see the concerns that they had on site, and that was undertaken in May this year. Removal of trees, I have to say, and you mentioned Greening Whittlesea before, Chair, it really is something that we don't take lightly. There are many reasons that we need to be there to support trees within our environment. Tree canopy within residential streets is really important for a number of reasons. And as you said, the adoption of the Greening Whittlesea strategy really highlights the importance of mature trees, particularly in our local streets and for our communities. And the strategy actually highlights us to try and aim to increase some tree cover in our municipality. But however, in this circumstance and in reviewing the independent reports, officers are recommending that the existing trees in Fielding Drive are removed and replaced. I would actually like to thank the head petitioner and the residents. They've been really respectful in all the dealings that they've had with staff and when we've been meeting with them, and patient with us as well to undertake the works to get to this resolution. So officers recommend that council resolve to remove the existing trees in Fielding Drive, replant the streets as part of the 21-22 street renewal program, but also to consult with the residents regarding the potential replacement species, and advise the head petitioner and all residents of Fielding Drive of the resolution to remove the trees. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Wood. Administrators, do you have any questions relating to this item?
Yes, Chair. Ms Wood, has it been decided yet what trees will be the replacement trees?
Not yet. We will propose 3 or 4 species, and then we'll go to the residents with those 3 or 4 species and have a conversation about which one they feel suits the street at best.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further questions? No. Do I have a mover for the officer recommendation for item 6.4.2?
Yes, Chair, I'd like to move this item.
Thank you, Administrator Duncan, and I'm happy to second the item. Would you like to speak to the item?
Just briefly, Chair, just to reflect on Ms Wood's comments, I think we've had a very rigorous consultation process with this particular item here, and I think it's very good that the residents have been involved and been willing to work with us in a constructive way. And I'm sure they're looking forward to what the replacement trees will be. So I'll be looking forward to hearing what they choose, and perhaps we can go down and have a look at, once it's all been finished, we can go down and have a look at what has been replanted down there. So well done to the officers on this and to our residents as well. Thank you for your input.
Thank you, Ms Duncan. I'd just echo Peter's comments, because this is the 3rd time we're actually considering this particular item. It first came to us as a petition in February 2021, and then there was a recommended delay to enable time for council officers to obviously not just consult with residents, but ensure that we had the appropriate technical expertise, both in terms of arborist and engineering. So I also really commend the council officers for the exhaustive efforts that they've made to genuinely hear the views of residents along Fielding Drive, but also not just to have a knee-jerk reaction, but to have the technical material to be able to substantiate and make recommendations regarding the way forward. And again, I would also echo the comments that you've made, Ms Wood, of recognition of the patience of residents and the fact that they have worked so cooperatively with council officers to get to this point. So thank you and your team, and also to the residents of Fielding Drive. On that note, I will put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is unanimously carried. Thank you, Ms Wood. Item 6.4.3 for decision, contract 2021-40 Park and Playground redevelopment at Riverside Reserve, South Morang. Ms Wood, I presume you're going to be introducing this report?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I'll stay online and do this one as well. So this report summarises the evaluation of tender submissions received for the construction of playground and landscape upgrades at Riverside Reserve. I think, as you all know, playgrounds are an important element in our community where kids can be active, challenged and socialise, and parents can get some time away from work and or the house and socialise with others as well. We currently have around 244 parks with existing playgrounds, and we get around 5 to 6 new parks handed over by developers each year. And we try and renew around 7 to 9 playgrounds in our renewal program. This is one of those. So the upgrade at Riverside Reserve will deliver new play and fitness equipment, a basketball half court, some connecting paths, picnic shelters, furniture and barbecue tree planting and general garden beds for our community to enjoy going forward. So the tender for the contract closed on the 1st of June 2021 and 7 tenderers were received, and council officers recommended as outlined in the report, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Wood. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this item? If there's no questions, do I have a mover and a seconder for the officer recommendation for item 6.4.3? Administrator Eddie has moved it, and do I have a seconder?
Seconding, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Duncan. Would either the mover or the seconder like to speak to the item?
I don't think we can add to what Ms Wood said. I think it's a terrific project, happy to support it, and let's get on with it.
On that note, I'll put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Ms Wood. Item 6.4.4 for noting Epping Cemetery Trust Freedom of Information requests an abstract of accounts. And if I could ask our Director of Corporate Services, Ms Montalti, to briefly introduce this report and its recommendations.
Thank you, Council. Sorry, I'm just having some issues trying to get the video on. There we go. As Council would be aware, the City of Whittlesea is trustee for the Epping Cemetery Trust, and administrators are trust members during their term on Council. This report is asking Council to nominate 2 administrators to sign those abstracts of accounts, as well as then approve those for submission to the Department of Health. So this is really just to confirm our statutory requirements in line with cemetery trusts. So quite a simple report. You'll notice there's not too much movement in the abstract of accounts, and that's to be expected considering that this is a closed cemetery. So there's really nothing further that I have to add to this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Montalti. Administrators, do you have any questions in relation to this report? Mr.
No,
Eddy?
Chair. No, Chair.
No.
No question. Thank you for asking, though.
If not, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for item 6.4.4, but if I could note the inclusion of the names Wilson and Eddy into part 1 of the recommendation, which is just being screened. And do I have a seconder?
I can second that for you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Administrator. I don't wish to speak to the item. As Ms Montalti said, this is a routine requirement that we need to comply with. Mr. Eddy, would you like to speak to the item?
Just to concur with you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I'll now put the item to a vote. All those in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you, Ms Montalti.
Thank you.
I note that there are no notices of motion and that there are no questions to council officers, I take it. Administrators, no. Are there any items of urgent business? No. So on that note, we'll move to reports of council representatives and the CEO update. And I wonder if I could invite Administrator Duncan to initially report on her activities over the past month.
Thank you, Chair. I attended, excuse me, with yourself and the other 2 administrators and council officers, our first business breakfast we held with 4 MPs, and that's a great way for us to showcase what we're doing in Whittlesea. and to get feedback from them if they are hearing things, obviously from the community, but to really bring them on board to show them what we are doing. So that was fantastic. I also attended the Boop Willem Aboriginal Child and Family Centre official opening of the redevelopment with the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Gabrielle Williams, and that was just a fantastic event. And to see that the redevelopment come to life, it's such a fantastic facility for our sort of childcare and family centres as well. I think, you know, they should be commended on what they've done there. And I also attended 2 citizenship ceremonies before we went back into another lockdown. So that was fantastic, and congratulations to all of those residents who became citizens on the 12th of July. And we have more to do through the year, I've no doubt. And then I also attended with yourselves and other council officers a tour of the Melbourne markets, which was just phenomenal and really great to see it absolutely in action at the godlike time of 5:45 a.m. in the morning. But it was very good to be there to see it all in action. So, and thank you to the Melbourne markets for hosting us. It was very interesting. That's all from me, Chair.
Thank you, Ms Duncan. Are there any questions of Ms Duncan? No? Administrator Eddie, if I could invite you now to just prepare an update in relation to your activities over the preceding period.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Much the same as Administrator Duncan. Of course, we've had a lockdown in the middle of the last few weeks. I have immensely enjoyed the events, though, that we have been able to participate in recent works. The business breakfast with the members of Parliament was terrific. I was very impressed with the level of interest and knowledge from the MPs who were present, quite inquiring about Whittlesea growth and challenges, etc., which was great to see, and it was a really good opportunity for the council to present on those challenges for the MPs. The Melbourne market visit was an absolute highlight, and I do just want to send our best wishes and condolences to all there, given the tragedy that occurred this morning, if people haven't caught up with that news. We actually were commenting at the time of being there what a busy place it is, and you know, risk management is obviously something that's on the high on their list of matters to be conscious of. Having said that, this morning's tragedy obviously is terrible news, and we really do send our best wishes to all. An amazing facility. We also saw the repurpose it facility. That whole Cooper Street site is just mind-blowing, what's happening there, and really enjoyed learning all about that. And of course, we had the business breakfast to launch the investment attraction plan, which was also terrific to see that launched and now being implemented. And I know it's probably going to come up on next month's list, but just this morning I had the pleasure of attending as the council's delegate the Northern Alliance for Greenhouse Action meeting, and in due course I'm sure we'll be able to report on some of the matters that were discussed at that meeting. So even though we've spent probably nearly half of it in lockdown, it feels like it's been a busy month, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Eddy. Are there any questions of Mr. Eddy? I have none. No? Thank you. And I also will just make note of similar attendance at a number of really important events alongside my colleague administrators. It's been a really busy period for me, and as Mr. Eddy has said, despite the current lockdown, we've had a busy period really actively engaging with our local, federal and state members of Parliament in advocacy endeavours, really, on behalf of the municipality. So alongside the CEO, I have had the quarterly catch-up with Bronwyn Halfpenny, the quarterly meeting with the Minister, the Honourable Lily D'Ambrosio, and as my colleagues noted, the business breakfast with a number of local members of parliament, which was very, very useful in terms of sharing of information and some updates on really important local issues. With my colleagues, I attended the Bupup Willem Aboriginal Child and Family Centre official opening of its redevelopment with the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, Gabrielle Williams. And then I would also note, as my colleagues did, attendance at 2 citizenship ceremonies. We're really disappointed that we've got a number of citizenship ceremonies that we had scheduled already that we've had to cancel because we can't conduct them in person, but we're really looking forward to holding them again in the near future. Also a main highlight for me was the site visit to Melbourne Market, and I echo your comments, Mr. Eddy, of commiserations in relation to the tragedy at the Melbourne Market. But we also attended on the same day the Repurpose It Cooper Street Resource Recovery Hub, and we also had the business breakfast to launch our investment attraction plan. And then just one other meeting I would note is alongside the CEO, we also attended the meeting of the Municipal Association of Victoria Interface regional meeting, which was really an important forum just to be able to collectively talk about key issues for the interface group of councils with one of our key peak bodies. Are there any questions of myself from my colleagues? Thank you. So if not, I might hand over to our CEO for him to just provide an update to both the council and the community in relation to key issues and events. Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Chair. So once again, over the past month, council alongside our community has had to respond to yet another lockdown as a result of COVID. Like the community in our business, we're getting more experience and we're able to respond more quickly to these snap lockdowns. And I'd like to acknowledge the ongoing work of our staff who've continued to deliver our services during these challenging times. I'd particularly like to recognise the work of our teams who've been on the ground supporting local businesses to operate safely. We've conducted over 7,500 business visits, supporting businesses with things such as COVID-safe plans and QR check-in requirements. It's pleasing now that we are seeing a vastly improved compliance right across the municipality with those requirements. Also in July, we welcomed 8 new members of Council's Youth Advisory Committee. They're an amazing, inspiring group of young people aged between 12 and 25 who we work with, and they work with Council to make sure that the voices of young people are heard in Council's decision making. As I said, they're a really impressive group, and we look forward to working with them closely and hearing their insights. And finally, the inaugural Whittlesea Community Awards program is now underway, and I'd like to thank the new awards committee for their oversight of this initiative. There are 5 award categories: Access and Inclusion Citizen of the Year, the Sustainable Environment Citizen of the Year, Senior Citizen of the Year, Young Citizen of the Year, and Citizen of the Year. And the nominations for these awards open very shortly on the 9th of August, with our awards ceremony being held in late October. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. And I would also note that Administrator Duncan is a key member of the inaugural Community Award Committee, and I know really enjoyed the first meeting of that group. Are there any questions of Mr. Lloyd? No? If not, I might just make a brief comment of acknowledgement of the leadership role that our CEO and of our staff in relation to COVID-19. And I've noted before, we've taken a really critical role in relation to vaccination, COVID testing, while also continuing to provide essential services. So we echo our appreciation also to you, Mr. Lloyd, and to staff across the organisation, as well as to the many other essential services and providers of health and support services to the community. So thank you. Just as a note, I also note that all verbal reports will be documented in the minutes. I note that there are no confidential reports listed on the agenda of the meeting. And so on that note, that brings us to the end of the meeting, and therefore I declare the meeting closed.